Hello everyone, welcome back. Today in the workshop we have a Japanese maple, and we're coming on spring here in the next probably month and a half. I believe today's the first day of February, as a matter of fact, and the sap in these trees is starting to flow. So now's the time that we need to start getting some things done, major work-wise, to these trees while we can. This is a fire glow Japanese maple. It's an Atroperpium species, which is a purple species, as you can see. It's got the purple stems, as well as when the leaves in the fall turn to their winter phase or their fall phase, they have a purplish color to them. And I was not able to do a demonstration on this tree. I meant to do a demonstration on this tree, and I did do a demonstration, and I do have a video of that demonstration. However, it was so windy that day, and I don't have a remote microphone for my camera. I'm looking into possibly getting one, and then also getting a wind blocker for that remote microphone. So if I do go on location and I do decide to shoot more videos, that's no longer going to be an issue. But I digress. This tree is second year in this container. It's got a good massive roots buildup. I did some pretty drastic pruning to this tree last year, and this year, now that I've gotten a back bud on it, it's time to do the second stage of this work. I'm going to spin it around for you to see the back. There was a giant branch here that I removed, a large one here. Of course, this is the apex shortening. I have one here, and I just kind of cut the tree way back. This tree was actually in, I believe it was a 55 or 65 gallon nursery container. I mean, it was enormous. And it had been in there for quite a number of years. And so what I thought I did was pretty drastic. This tree was, at the top of the canopy was 10 feet, and now it's 3 feet. So I didn't want to do way too much, but I did what I felt comfortable with last year. Now we're going to need to do some more. Starting with these two front branches here, these two major front branches, I'm going to remove this inner trunk, to kind of open up that canopy there. I'm going to keep this as a front and a leader, and I'm probably going to take it back to this, which is the strongest growing portion below this long area that doesn't have anything. I've got a couple little sprouts up here at the top, but then we don't really have anything until we get down into this crotch area. So that more than likely is where I'm going to be keeping this new apex. I'd like to take this part of the tree and bring it backwards if I could. However, I do have a few coming off the back side of this tree back here to fill in this back side of the canopy. If you look at it from this orientation, you can see everything's kind of forward in this tree and not a whole lot back here. However, like I said before, we've got some back budding and some branching developing back here on the back side, which is good, which is going to allow me to remove this stub, etc. And I've got more down here, down low. So what I'm probably going to do after I get this one done today is this whole next growing season, this back side of the tree where I want this branching to develop is going to be the side that faces the sun predominantly, which is going to be an southeastern exposure. So it's going to get morning sun, afternoon sun, and then the front of the tree will get the evening sun and some afternoon sun as well. What that's going to do is that's going to allow all these branches that are on this back side of the tree, and I'm just going to allow them to extend in growth and girth and be able to develop this back side of the canopy where we're kind of lacking right now. So let's go ahead and get started with this tree. Like I said before, starting with the front, always start at the lowest branch, work my way up from there, which is this one here. I'm going to be removing this large piece right here, and I'm going to need to carve down to the base somewhat. Unfortunately, I'm probably not going to be able to keep this branch And I'm probably not going to be able to keep that bud there as well because I need to transition this so it'll heal properly and won't have a bulge there. But right here, you really can't see it. And a few more down here, there's some dormant buds. So when I remove this, one of these is going to probably pop, allowing some growth and some callousing in this area. If you look back here on the back side, I have a branch stub that I cut off last year as well. I'm going to be needing to do some carving work and bring this down and transition this out as well. So when we get finished with this trunk line, this is what we're going to be left with. I'm not real happy that all the branching is out here at the very end. I'm hoping maybe we can get some back budding down through here. I do have a dormant bud clear back in here, so if necessary we can eliminate this next year and just go with that dormant bud there if it pops and extends growth this year. So let's go ahead and start on that for now, and then we can move on from there. I've got a silky gumboy saw. There's a folding version and a stationary version like this of this same saw. It's 240 millimeter length. These are what I like to do this kind of work with. I'm going to attempt to possibly save this, but I just don't see it being a possibility. I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll try to do what we can to save it for now, but once we get to the carving point on this tree, if it cannot be saved, it's not a big deal because we weren't really planning on saving it anyway. So I'm coming here and remove this back to as low as I can, so when I get to doing the carving portion of this, here's another little tip or trick. I always like to do that relief cut on the back side, but I'm so close to this branch right here that if I can save this branch, I would prefer to. And what I do is, if you can see, I've cut almost completely through that stub. If you come through here when you're like that and pull backwards, you can actually snap it off flush. You can snap it off flush. And as you can see, this thing's bleeding already. You can see it's getting ready to drip. Right there. If you look right here, it's dripping already. Drip. That's maple, basically what maple syrup comes from. It's got a sweet taste to it. Okay, same thing on this side. Let's go ahead and reduce this branch here. I've got a dormant bud clear down here, which I'm super excited about, because when we carve this back, we're going to carve back to that dormant bud, and that will be a new branch for us in the future. That's that one gone. And of course this one's dripping already. Same thing with this back one. We're going to be doing some reduction carving here, so we need to remove it as well. I'm going to go ahead and remove these wires. These wires here are kind of like a guy wire system, or a system that I use to hold these trees in these pots when I first repot them. So as when the canopy grows, the first growing season, and the wind blows, it doesn't rock the tree back and forth, which allows the tree to get the roots developed and really get set in the pot. This thing is really bleeding, which tells me the sap is a-flowing, and it won't be long before the buds start popping. I'm okay with this tree bleeding like it is. It won't bleed out like a human if you have a bad wound, so I'm not concerned with that. I'm also going to be getting quite a bit of rain tomorrow. Calling for up to 2 inches of rain tomorrow, so not really concerned because the roots the soil's already very moist that it's in currently, and then with the addition of the rain tomorrow, it'll replenish itself. And it's not going to bleed. It's not going to bleed for a week or anything like that. It'll just bleed until it compartmentalizes that area, and then it'll stop. Alright, again on this side I've got this here that I need to remove stub from last year. Alright, keeping this, so this has got to go. A lot of times on these maples, I like to do this work in November, right after they very first go dormant. One of the reasons is the bleeding control. When they're going dormant, the sap's going back down into the root base, not flowing back from the root base up through the tree. A lot of this bleeding can be avoided at that point in time, so that's kind of a reason I prefer to do it then versus now. But it's really not that big of a deal. Looks like I got a couple buds there dormant, so that's a good sign. So let's take this whole baby out of here. Alright, so that's most of the major removal work that we needed to do on this tree. With the exception of this branch up here, which just go ahead and take back now. Okay. Doesn't leave us with a whole lot, honestly. But it leaves us with plenty. Actually, it leaves us really with plenty, but just doesn't look like it at the moment. So now that we've got most of that removal done, we're going to transition to carving. And I'm going to use the power tool for the carving and the transitioning of all these spots that I've just cut, just so it gives me a smoother transition, a more uniform transition. Now, like before, you got to be careful with your carving tools. So I'm going to have gloves and safety glasses on, and you need to think ahead before you do the carving as to which way the bit rotates. You're going to want to go away from you like this when you're carving with that bit. You don't want to bring it towards you, because if it catches, it can come back at you this way. If you're going away from you and it catches, it just goes away, and it'll go away and hopefully not do any damage to the branching around it. That was just a dead nub that we were using last year to hold the wire. So now, we move to carving. Now the tree looks naked again. And I don't like the fact that now this is lower than these two. So to be honest with you, I've got a dormant bud right here. Let's go ahead and remove that back to there, because these look too uniform to me. Dormant bud here. We're going to come back to that. Man, oh man, I wish I had some back budding down through here somewhere. I'm going to have to leave this one the way it is for now. And if we get some back budding down here, great. If not, I'm really hoping that that bed right there is viable and branches us out a new branch. Alright. We can do some more of that work after we get the major carving work out of the way. I'm going to get the major carving work out of the way now. So let's get started with that. That's what we're looking for. And it looks a little drastic right now. Stuff. Whoop. It looks a little drastic right now, however, because I did what I did right there, and let me zoom in so you can actually see it. I actually indented this quite a bit through here. And the reason is when this callus is over, it's going to roll over and it's going to fill that, and then it's going to swell out just a little bit, and that's just going to be a natural transition up there. Down here, just below right here, I have some dormant buds, so they're going to end up popping, and that's where we'll get our tertiary branching if we need it in our sacrificial branching down in this area to heal that over more rapidly. I wanted to try to keep those other two if I could. It's just not going to be realistic. So that's pretty much finished for that one. Now we got to come in here and work on this back side and get it taken care of. Okay, now the carving's done. You can see what we've got here as far as an outline now. I still have some non-mechanically carving, I'd like to call manual carving or hand carving, to do here at this tip, to do up here at this tip, etc. And we also have some branch selection. Even though we've got a lot of branches off here, we have some branch selections we need to make now as well. For instance, we've got two back branches here. One of them's in a better location than the other. They're both coming out of the same spot, so we need to remove the one that we're not keeping. Up here, apex wise, I've got the same situation. I'm going to keep the weaker of these two and take the stronger of the two. This over here as well, another situation where we've got a branch here, branch directly behind it. The branch behind it's actually in a better location and it's weaker. remove the stronger one. We've got several different branches back here. They're not all necessary. They're all coming from the same location on the tree, which means we're going to get a whirl effect, just like a pine tree, which will in turn can turn into a reverse taper. So we want to eliminate those as well. Now, I'm not going to be putting cut paste on this tree just yet. And the reason for that is it's bleeding. And it's bleeding pretty profusely. If I was to come in here and put cut paste on it right now, it would do no good. It would just wash itself right off because the tree's bleeding so much. So I need to let this set for a day to 2 days, allow the bleeding to be compartmentalized by the tree, and you can see back here where we did all the carving work. Let's go ahead and zoom in just so you can kind of see what it looks like now. So we had 4 major stubs back here that we had to remove, and it's just a transitional carve. I carved it to where it naturally flows into this next branch here, and then I indented it a little bit so that when the calcium heals over, it'll heal flat instead of having a knob. Same thing here, I had 2 large ones here, and I've got a dormant bud here. Okay. Just kind of coming through here and doing another check to see if there's anything else I should do transition wise to make this look more natural. I think we pretty much got that one whooped. So again, here's the front. I know we're going to have some unsightly scars on this tree, but this tree is in the very beginning stages of development, and you kind of have to work with what you're given. You have to use the material that you're given to do what you're trying to accomplish. In a perfect world, every tree would have a perfect nabari and perfect branch placement, but we live far from a perfect world. Go ahead and show you something else I want to do on this tree here as well. It looks like it's planted kind of high in this pot, and actually it is. Not necessarily fond with how high this tree is in this pot, but I've got a problem here that I'd like to address on the base. And I'm going to bring you down to the base and zoom it on in so you can see what I'm talking about. Good. This is actually the back side of the tree. This root comes straight across here. If you look at it from the front perspective, it seems like it's crisscrossing over these roots here. And it actually is. So we want to work on this right now. I'm going to remove this root. It's got a large scar on the top of it here, and it's not good for the final design. However, when I removed the roots on this tree last year, I removed so many of them, I was literally removing too many. So now I need to come in here and work at this. Kind of expose a little bit more of this. Nabari, or root base, whatever you prefer. On this side of the tree, and just whittle our way back here till we get actually, I want my larger knob cutters to do this task. Stand by. That was and is still a pretty major root on this tree, but it's just not conducive to the overall design of the tree, so it's got to go. Now we can get in there and kind of see what we're left with. A few more crossing over roots we got to deal with underneath there, which are dead anyway. Probably next year I'm going to go ahead and remove this tree and do some repotting work on it. Pot a little bit deeper than it is currently. It needs to be potted about right here. The soil level needs to be up about another inch, inch and a half to about right in here. So we will do that next year. For now, we need all the roots we can to focus on growth and healing. Okay. So that's it on the Fire Glow Japanese maple for this season and the styling of it. I know that I left a knob here, and I did that intentionally. I've got here and here on both sides of that to let it die back to, so that's cool. This one here, I kind of let it get right up against this one here, should be okay. I've got some what appear to be dormant buds back down behind here. Hopefully it won't die all the way back down, but if it does, it does, and we'll just use that bud next year and develop the tree from there. Do a quick 360 to it here for you, and we will get this one back out on the bench. Like I said, 2 days from now. It's supposed to get rain tomorrow. If I get rain tomorrow, it'll probably continue wanting to sap or bleed, which is fine. It's already looking like it's started to compartmentalize most of these wounds. It was dripping at first, if you remember. Now it's just kind of seeping. You see these dark spots in the bark, and that's just seep of the sap. You can see one right here on the back side as well. And that's normal. But it'll compartmentalize in the next day or two, and then once I see no more of that seeping look and the bark is dry, then I'll hit it with the wound sealant because I know it's done bleeding. And then the wound sealant will have a chance to harden and protect that area, and then start the callousing process. So that's it for the Japanese Maple Fire Glow. Thank you for watching.